Hi guys, Hiroshi here. Tuesday, April 27th, 2021 was a day packed filled with news. I covered the token Ramba reveals in my previous video, so be sure to check that out. In this video, I'm going to be covering the information and reveals we got in regards to the Monster Strike trial decks and booster set. With that said, let's jump right into it, starting with the trial decks. So here are the title trial deck posters. On the left we have the Excalibur deck, which is called Choju Shinsai or Super Beast God Festival, and on the right we have the Laplace deck, which is called Gekiju Shinsai or Fierce Beast God Festival. Both decks will release simultaneously in Japanese on July 23rd, which is a Friday. Now I just want to say that, man, the art here is so nice. I'm a huge sucker for cel shading when it's done right, and they really nailed it for the art on these two posters. Props to the artist for seriously putting in some crazy work into the details. I mean, you can see the linings for Excalibur's muscles, and all of the weapons in the background look really cool. They really scream, this guy is a hero character. I also dig the robotic hand. Don't know what that's for, but the detail in it is amazing. And of course it goes without saying that Laplace is total waifu material. I've always been a fan of the more serious, sharp-eyed female characters as opposed to the softer, round-eyed ones, so I'm gonna keep my eye on building a deck focused around her. Other than the fact that she's such an eye-catching gal, there's so much detail in her design. I mean, she's got those horns, those side wings, some digital-looking hexagons, and these tendrils coming out of her. And maybe it's because of Dark Magician, but ever since I was a kid, I was always a sucker for spell circles and artwork, so I really appreciate that she's got a ton of those around her. Also, peep the arrows that are coming out of her horn and the little star hair clips. The level of detail here is next level. All in all, just these posters alone have got me excited, but the fun's only begun. Let's move on to some trial deck related information. So right off the bat, I want to talk about the art. These are called Kaki Oroshi Irasto or freshly drawn illustrations, and they are Vanguard only artworks. I just think that it's really cool that the folks over at Monster Strike were willing to go deep enough into this collab to create art that's only available in Vanguard. I respect that. Not to mention, there's so much character in Excalibur's and Laplace's poses. Excalibur looks like he's ready to just kick some ass, and Laplace looks like she's trying to lure you into a trap using her feminine wiles. Something I personally wouldn't mind falling into. Also, I love the orange wind-like swirls Excalibur has around him and the bright colored imagery. It really adds impact to his pose and gives off the he's a good guy vibe. Whereas Laplace has these really cool looking digital platform wall things and clouds above her head, which not only ties into the digital looking hexagons we saw in the previous image, but also give off the feeling that she's a cold-hearted, calculative evildoer. Again, the level of detail in these artworks is bonkers, and I'd love it if Bushi were to make acrylic stands for these artworks alone. Please Bushi, please do it. Alright, I think I've talked enough about the artwork. Let's get into the other information in this deck. So, there are two types of high-level rarities, Monster Rare Kiwami and Super Secret Rare. I believe that both rarities will feature the same artwork you see here, but the SSR rarity cards will have the signatures of voice actors Konishi Katsuyuki and Kito Akari printed on them, which I believe may be the voices for Excalibur and Laplace respectively. Let me know by leaving a comment down below. Moving along, we have some more trial deck related information. What you see in front of you are the right lines for the Excalibur and Laplace decks. The names for the Excalibur right line from left to right are Excalibur, Mose, which I believe is meant to be Moses, and Amida. And it seems like the Excalibur right line borrows names from religion and mythology, as Excalibur is the legendary sword of King Arthur, Moses is a prophet and popular figure in Christianity, and Amida is one of the 5 celestial Buddha and is the central figure in Pure Land Buddhism, which is a branch of East Asian Buddhism. The names for the Laplace right line from left to right are Laplace, Enma, and the third and last unit is Miroku. The unique quality of the Monster Strike ride line is that you can choose the order in which to ride each unit, rather than being bound to a particular order, like in all of the other ride lines. However, it's important to mention that the order in which the units appear on screen is the recommended order to use when you start out using these trial decks, or if you're just a beginner to the game in general. Now going back to the unique quality of the Monster Strike ride line, being that you can choose the order in which to ride each unit. I don't know if I heard wrong, but if that's exactly what it is, I don't really know how they're going to implement that. But, you know, as you watch the rest of this video, you're going to see that Monster Strike is conceptually really different from anything we've seen so far, so I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with some crazy way to make this work. And finally, the Excalibur trial deck will come with 8 front triggers, while the Laplace trial deck will come with 8 critical triggers. It seems like the Excalibur deck will be more focused on powerful front row swings, whereas the Laplace deck will focus around dealing sharp damage. And with that, we've covered all of the Monster Strike title trial deck news. From here on out, we're going to be covering information in regards to the second title booster, otherwise known as the first booster set for Monster Strike. Here we have the poster for DTBO2, or the overdress title booster set number 2, which is the booster set that will come after the Token Ranbu set, and it'll release on July 23rd, which, interestingly enough, is the same day the trial decks will release. So you can cop all of the new Monster Strike cards on the same day. And honestly, this is really awesome, and I love that they did that. And of course, it would be remiss of me to not talk about the art, which is just, again, simply fantastic. You may already know by now, but I'm a huge fan of the sharp-eyed girl in the middle, but the other two girls are just as lovely looking. The colors, expressions, garments, and other little details used really speak to their personalities and make them feel less like they were cut from the same cloth, and more like they're each their own unique individuals with their own story. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The art is just so fantastic, and it's just right down my alley. I love this, and I would love to see this art in non-Monster Strike cards. Also, we have a list of the number of new cards that will be introduced in the set. The 71 main rarities are comprised of 10 triple rares, 13 double rares, 2 over double rares, which may be comprised of an over trigger and a trigger order, 15 single rares, and 31 commons. The 10 special rarities will be comprised of 2 super secret rares, 8 monster secret rare Kiwami, and 71 monster secret rares, which most likely means that you will have a chance to pull any of the cards in the main rarities as a monster secret rare, which is pretty dope. Moving along, we have some information regarding the Monster Strike Perfect Guard and Box Topper promos. The Perfect Guard, which you can see to the left, will be of single rare rarity, and her name is Shinwa wo Motarasu Jouai no Tenshi Mana, which roughly translates to something like the Angel of Love who brings forth legends Mana. The Box Topper promos, which you can see to the right, will contain the ball illustration artworks of various characters from the Monster Strike game, and in case you haven't guessed, this is the art that appears in the actual game itself. And the promos can be any of one copy of Mana, which is the Perfect Guard, and any of the 4 trigger unit types. And of course it'll be random. So we'll be getting 5 different kinds of promos. Also, thanks to the Perfect Guard being a part of the promo package, you will have a chance to grab 2 Perfect Guards in a single booster box, which is pretty nice, and should definitely make nabbing 4 copies in the secondary market very affordable. Well, she's a single rare, so she's most definitely going to be affordable, but hey, this will make her even more affordable, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Bushi. And we're finally at the first official card reveal with its full name and effect. This card's name is King Tamago, or Golden Egg, and its ability reads, when you stand up, you become a striker. And the text in parentheses says, when you become a striker, take a Gacha Lidra from your ride deck, place it in the order zone, and place a monster box into your hand. Now, I know that things are kind of confusing right now. What is a striker? What is a Gacha Lidra? And what's a monster box? The rest of this video from this point forward will be comprised of me explaining the entire Monster Strike gimmick, answering those 3 questions, translating the Q&A that was shown at the end of Tuesday's livestream, and finally extending a big special thanks to Moriketa. So Mori-san, if you're listening, stay tuned. Alright, so this is the Monster Strike Gimmick Explanation deck. As you can see, there's an arrow coming out of a sample card that looks to be in order. This card is called Gacha Lidra and is pointing to what looks to be the ride deck. Well, not looks to be, it is the ride deck. Now, when it comes to the ride deck, we're familiar that it's only allowed to have 4 cards, each consisting of grades 0 through 3. Things are a bit different in the Monster Strike Nation in that you have 5 cards in your Riot deck as opposed to the usual 4. Your Monster Strike Riot deck will be composed of the 4 usual grade 0 through grade 3 units, but you'll also include Gacha Lidra in it as well for, again, a total of 5 cards in your Riot deck. Now, if we take a close look at Gacha Lidra, we can see that it's of the set order / gacha type. Now with all of that said, let me explain how this works. As soon as you start the match and flip the golden egg face up, which is your starting Vanguard, you'll take the Gacha Lidra from your Riot deck and place it in your order zone. This means that, unlike in a normal deck where the main deck will consist of 46 cards, in a Monster Strike deck it'll consist of 45 because of the Gacha Lidra causing the Riot deck to consist of 5 cards rather than the usual 4. If we're to assume that we're not going to be incentivized to add any grade 0 normal units into our main deck, like with Trickstar and Verena, 45 minus 16 triggers results in a total of 29 cards to play around with when deck building. Now, you may be wondering what the Monster Box and Gacha Lidra do. Those are what we'll tackle next. To the left we have Gacha Lidra and to the right we have the Monster Box. Gacha Lidra's effect is Act, Order Zone, Cost, rest this card, take the top card of your deck, and place it face up in your Monster Box. The rest of its effect is blacked out because it's a pretty big deal, but don't worry, we'll get into it in the next part. Now, let's get into the Monster Box's effect, which says, when you have a Monster Box, you can perform the following. Once, during your main phase, you may choose one card in your hand that shares the same grade as a unit in your Monster Box and swap them. So basically, if you have a grade 1 unit in your hand, and there's a grade 1 unit in your Monster Box, you can take that grade 1 unit in your hand, place it in the Monster Box, and take the grade 1 unit that was in the Monster Box, and place that into your hand. Now there are some important things that I really need to point out here. First of all, you cannot take a card from the Monster Box and put it into your hand without swapping out a card from your hand, and vice versa. Also, the card swap must be of the same grade. For instance, you can't swap a grade 1 with a grade 3 card. Now with the Monster Box, you can do some pretty cool things, like increasing the consistency of persona writing and pulling out a perfect card when you need one. Now you may be thinking, but with Gacha Lidra's effect, I can only take the top card of my deck at a time. How is that increasing the consistency of anything at all? Well, stay strapped in your seats because I'm going to be going over that in the next part. It's going to be kind of crazy. But before that, I still have a couple of things to say. First of all, I really love the concept of the Monster Box, and it really makes Monster Strike seem like so much fun to play. Now, you may be wondering, where does a Monster Box even go? I get that the golden egg lets me put a Monster Box into my hand, but where do I play it? Great question, and thanks for asking. Now, there isn't a set zone to put the Monster Box in. It just exists somewhere on the board and not in your deck. It's kind of like a mark or a symbol of some sort that sort of exists / floats on the board. The Q&A part will go into this in more detail, so stay tuned for that. And here is the card of the hour, the Gacha Lidra itself in all of its full effect glory. Now, the text in rainbow over here says Juden Gacha, or 10 consecutive Gacha, which is kind of on the nose in regards to Gacha Lidra's second effect. But, just to reiterate, its first effect is Act, Order Zone, Cost, rest this card, take the top card of your deck, and place it face up in your Monster Box. Now, the previously hidden second effect is as follows. Act, Order Zone, once per fight, when both players' Vanguards are a grade 3 or greater, cost, counterblast 2, rest this card, and place 10 cards from the top of your deck into your Monster Box. Then, choose 3 cards from your Monster Box and call them to your rearguard circles. Yeah, the gimmick makes it so that we literally end up doing a 10 card booster pack gacha opening here, and that's both hilarious and seriously awesome. I don't know what else to say other than that this is really interesting, and that I love that the folks over at Bushi were open-minded enough to make an archetype like this. I tip my hat off to them. We're finally at the Monster Strike Q&A portion, and that monster box question that was probably lingering in the back of your mind will be answered in full detail here. So, the first question is, taking into consideration that I'll have Gacha Lidra in my ride deck, how should I construct my deck? And the answer is, including Gacha Lidra, the deck is still comprised of a total of 50 cards rather than 51. This means that your ride deck will be comprised of 5 cards, while your main deck will be comprised of 45 cards. The monster box is considered an outside card, so it doesn't count towards your deck's total count. The second question is, what exactly is the monster box? And the answer is, you can think of it as a new sort of area that allows Gacha Lidra to make use of its effects. Just think of it as a card that lets you replenish your resources. The fighter can only have access to this new area when they are a striker. So that's where the whole striker thing comes into play. If you're not a striker, you're not allowed to use the monster box. Also, there isn't an official zone for the monster box in the field, so just simply place it somewhere that's easy to see for both players or somewhere that's easily within your reach. And that does it for the Q&A. The next part is going to be my final thoughts and my thank you to Mori-san. So if you've made it this far, I just want to thank you so much for sticking around, and while we're at it, because you made it this far, it wouldn't hurt to give this video a like and to subscribe to the channel, right? Wink wink. Now, I'm sure a big question in all of our minds is, will the set come out in English? Unfortunately, there was no mention of it in the live stream, so we can only hope, and hopefully they'll address that in next week's live stream or sometime in the future. As for my final thoughts regarding the Monster Strike Nation, I find that this is yet another awesome, unique, and creative game design implemented in overdress, and only serves to make me even more excited for it when it hits the West. And finally, I just want to extend a huge thank you to the team over at bushiroad for really bringing in some much needed love to this game. I also want to say that we're just so lucky to have Mori Keita on our side. We've all heard of the miracles he brought into games that he had touched in the past, like Shadowverse, but that didn't necessarily mean that his golden touch would work on Vanguard, and thank goodness it did. And with the kind of results we've been getting so far, honestly, I'm not surprised. The man's a living legend. I'm sure that he's working his ass off behind the scenes to not only help improve the game as a whole, but also to take the Western players more seriously as well, and that's something that I really appreciate. I hope that he won't suffer some sort of health backlash from working so hard, but if he does, I honestly wouldn't mind if he were to take a break from his duties, because he would deserve it. But yeah, the rest of this part is just my personal thanks to Mori Keita in the hopes that it'll reach him. If you're not interested, feel free to use the timestamp in the description or navigate using the chapters to skip the rest of this part. Now, Mori-san, if you're watching this, I just want to say, あなたの活力は海外のプレイヤーたちに伝わっております。でも健康を崩さないように頑張るほどお休みもしてやってください。森さんが今までやったことと未来の活動がお楽しみです。そしてこのゲームを愛し合ってくれてありがとうございます。私はあなたとあなたのチームがいるからオーバードレスが成功したんだと思います。今後もよろしくお願いいたします。ありがとうございます。And with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of future uploads. My name is Hiroshi and I'll see you in the next one. じゃあねー。